And good morning to everybody. With peace, love, and understanding in my heart, and gratitude for Larry for coming back for a second day, and a constant extension of the presumption of grace to Dan, I welcome you to the Wednesday, May 21st edition of the morning meeting. Thank you. Larry, any feedback overnight from Larry World about your performance yesterday?
But I was actually admonished for being a little too tame yesterday.
Ooh,
Interesting.
Yeah. So get ready. Buckle up, people.
Yesterday many said we got wimpy Larry, but today we're getting Tom DeLay, Dick Army Larry.
Let's go.
Oh yeah, where's the hammer?
What do you want? You want the hammer? You want absolutely. I'll bring it.
All right. Well, again, we're really excited to have you back and happy to have you back. And pardon me while I adjust one of my devices here. I'll run through the day book. Not much going on, at least as of now. And then we'll kick around some stories amongst the three of us. And then we'd love to have your participation. If you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand. If you're on X or YouTube, great way to participate. Write things in the chat, but no smack, please. Nothing personal, no attacks. If you hear something you don't like, use it as an opportunity to learn rather than to criticize. I've got this theory about celebrities because there are more celebrities now than there have been in human history because of all this media, right? There are lots of famous people. And if you're of a certain age, and the three of us are approximately the same age, then we're going to have a universe of people that we care a lot about. And I want to do two-way breaking news two ways when a celebrity dies. So we can show clips off the YouTube and everybody can sit around and talk and maybe bring in a guest as someone who knew them or covered them as a reporter. One of the things we want to do. George Wendt died. And I just know intuitively a lot of you had the same emotion about it, which is like, it's really resonant. Famous people die every day, but this one's very resonant. So I want to start the show because I can. Playing you 107B, please. A little George Wendt retrospective.
All right, now you beat me fair and square, so, all right, let me buy you a beer. There. Excuse me, I was sitting there.
Oh, there was no one here when we came in.
No, I mean yesterday. And really, since the Ford administration.
We're just waiting for our table up at Melville's.
So you'll move?
Look, there's lots of other stools.
Look, sounds good. I'm Norm.
I'm Jeffrey. This is Hillary.
It's nice to meet you. What do you do, Norm?
I sit there.
Well, it's nice meeting you.
Look, this is. We're running out of time here. He's already 2 stages beyond anything I've seen before, so I think you better give him the stool.
I'm sorry, we're sitting here.
What's all the commotion about? Who cares? Set him up, Wood.
All right, Dan, why does George Wendt strike such a chord with all of us?
Oh man, it was a great show. I know our family used to sit around and watch it. The humor, he was just like everyman. I mean, he played the everyman. His one-liners, his wit was awesome. I love that show.
Yeah,
Larry.
Well, and as we begin our Gen X reminiscing here and sounding like the old guys, I mean, this was a time when there were just, what, 3, 4, 5 channels. And so when a big show like that exploded, you could count on 30 to 40% of the viewers watching that show every night. So the next day you would talk about it. And so we had this thing in common. As much as I love streaming and the access to entertainment and information right now with the age we're living in, we've lost that. We don't have this commonality of entertainment and characters like that and personalities like that, because you're lucky if you're getting 5% of people watching something, unless it's the Super Bowl.
So thank you both. I don't know much about the news business, but I know this: lead with the lead. And I know even though he died past yesterday was much discussed, it was still the lead. So there's that. And if you all want to comment on George Wendt when we get to your portion of the program, please do. President today, pretty limited schedule. Mostly built around greeting the president of the Republic of South Africa. 11:30 arrival. 11:45 the bilateral lunch, closed press. And then the White House pool covers the bilateral meeting at 12:45. That could turn into nothing, or it could turn into a Zelensky-like confrontation over some of the issues the president has, or it could turn into a 9-hour press conference. And then at 4 o'clock, the president greets the University of Florida Gators, who won the men's basketball championship, and that's open to the press. And so who knows what will happen there. Don't know about the vice president. Capitol Hill, there's a few Senate hearings, but most of the action relates to the question of whether the speaker can get out of the Rules Committee, which is, I believe, still ongoing. It was going all night, and onto the floor. And there's some possibility the House will vote on the reconciliation bill today, which would make my prediction of Sunday or Saturday incorrect. We'll see. House Democrats continue to try to message around reconciliation. The leader, Mr. Jeffries, and others are holding a Families Over Billionaires rally at 6 p.m. tonight.
Prime time. All right.
Yeah, and we'll see. So as I said, they were meeting all night. Here is this would be 106. This is Mr. Comer of Kentucky on the Rules Committee. I think at about 1 or 2 a.m. Eastern time. Let's listen.
Ranking Member McGovern. Today I'm here to talk about a generational opportunity to realize reforms that address the budget deficit. The provisions proposed by the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform in Title IX of this bill are part of President Trump's larger effort to improve the fiscal health of the federal government. Last November, Democrats offered to provide more of the same, but the American people instead elected President Trump to a historic second term on promises to change Washington, D.C. The deficit reductions in Title IX of the reconciliation package codify part of the President's vision for enacting his agenda and achieving significant taxpayer savings. Congressional procedure, precedent, and tradition too often contribute to an ever-expanding federal government. Meanwhile, too little is done to shrink the administrative state and make the federal bureaucracy more efficient. The budget reconciliation process provides a rare opportunity to reverse that trajectory.
All right. So overnight, reporting the salt deal is done, at least with the salties, and some people who were leaning no or said they hadn't been convinced are convinced. But by my whip count, done here from the Upper West Side of Manhattan, if you took everybody at their word of who said they're still leaning no, they don't have the votes yet. But the assumption is, whether it's today or tomorrow or a few days, the votes will be there. Dan, where does reconciliation stand at this hour?
Yeah, it's going to be there. The holdouts are the faux, deficit and debt hawks. There is no deficit and debt reduction in this. I mean, it's amazing that what did Trump call himself? The most fiscally responsible president ever, something like that yesterday. They're going to fold, and I think this thing gets through in the next 48 hours.
I think Dan's right.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry. Go ahead.
Sorry. I went to an event, the American Conservative Union, the organization that puts on CPAC. They were handing out their ratings they do for congressmen. So I was at that event, and a lot of the guys and ladies were passing in, and I was trying to grab as many as I could to find out where things stand. All of them said the same thing, Mark. It's happening. It's happening. It's just a question of how much pain you get before it happens. But one thing that two things were consistent. Number one, they all raved on Trump's performance. They said he didn't even use his script. He just went off, and it was classic Trump behind closed doors, number one, and they all loved it. And number two, which I found very interesting, they said, listen, this isn't the last vote. So even those who are holding out recognize that they got to go through this again. And so they're going to toe the line and they're going to move this forward.
Yeah.
And I have to say, though, like the one thing that is remarkable is just how bad the Democratic messaging has been on this. They are all over the place. We've spent the week talking about Joe Biden, most of last week talking about Joe Biden. The fact that like it does appear, and facts are hard to get from this bill, that it's going to throw 8 million people off Medicaid. Now, according to Republican estimates, Democrats have said 15. Like that alone should be a fight Democrats want to have all day, every day. 8 million versus 15 million, because Trump said don't effing touch it, which of course they're going to. So it does make me kind of sigh how bad the Democrats have been seizing an opportunity.
You might not want that fight if the American people learn that those 8 million or even 15 million are people that shouldn't be getting Medicaid at all if they're not in this country legally, if we've been subsidizing Gavin Newsom's gift to illegal immigrants, if it's fraud, if there are people who are able-bodied and getting benefits that they were never designed to get. Be careful what you wish for if you want that fight.
That sounds like Doge, and Doge went underwater real fast when reality hit.
So let me just say a couple things, and then we'll move on, and obviously we'll continue to talk about reconciliation. First, I'm so glad we took the president live yesterday on his arrival at the Hill, because that incredible line that we all laughed at where he said, Mike Johnson, a man of God. I was like, well, I'm a man of God too, but he's really a man of God. I didn't see that picked up anywhere. And if we hadn't shared it live together, we wouldn't have seen it. At least I wouldn't have. Second is, I think one of the most undercovered stories about Donald Trump is the ways in which he's a better president this time than he was last time. And one thing which was in sharp relief yesterday, and you saw it when he was talking to Speaker Johnson, about standing with Speaker Johnson and talking about Thune and Johnson, you saw it based on the reports of how he did in the conference that Larry referenced. He understands the personalities and the rhythms and the dynamics of Capitol Hill much better than he did the first term, much better. And I hear that in talking to people about his interactions with the staff that deals with the Hill, and with the president dealing with members, and that includes the vice president, who wasn't a senator for very long, but also because he's a brilliant guy, understands the rhythms not just of the House, of the Senate where he served, but also of the House, and a lot of the people around the president on the legislative affairs team do as well. And it's a massive advantage. And his first term would have been different. And again, I'm only talking about tactics and strategy and performance here. I'm not talking about his policies. But the first term would have been different if he had had this level of experience. And of course, it's always the challenge when you have an outsider get elected president. Bill Clinton had the same learning curve problems. Barack Obama had some of them, even though he'd been in the Senate. Bush didn't, for a variety of reasons, in part because his dad had been president. But it's a real striking difference. And Capitol Hill Press Corps always, I've said this before, they always covered these things like perils of Pauline. It'll never pass. But when it passes, which we all think it will, it's going to be a pretty extraordinary legislative achievement. There's still people on the Hill who are saying to me now they should have done 2 bills. And remember, there was the talk 1 bill or 2 bills. There are still people saying 2 bills. I just have never understood the 2 bill argument. There's some upsides to it, but the downsides are immense. And mostly it's asking the Congress to do the impossible twice is more than twice as hard as asking them to do it once. And if this passes, again, I'll say, it'll be to a large extent testament to Donald Trump's greater knowledge of how Capitol Hill works. And you could just see it. Just go back and look at the way he talked about Speaker Johnson and John Thune yesterday. It's extremely nuanced, the things he said. And it's a reflection of his understanding of them as people, the challenges they face, and how they have pulled together. Lastly, the Thune-Johnson relationship is remarkably undercovered. And that's a big part of what, if this bill passes, a big part of the success as well. All right, enough from me. The New York Times, much derided, and sometimes by me, it's one of the great American institutions. Even if you think they're biased, their coverage is unparalleled. There's not another paper in the world that does things the way they do, particularly on foreign policy. They have a 4 byline story today that's extraordinary. It's a great piece of journalism. A lot of it's just kind of putting in sharp relief stuff we're all seeing. But Donald Trump went from saying Putin's the obstacle, I will broker a negotiation between Putin and Zelensky, to saying we need to do an economic deal with Putin, but he and Zelensky need to go work this out and let me know how it goes. Those are some of the shifts. But the Times story chronicles where we are now, which again, the president's critics continue to say, well, the solution is more military aid for Ukraine from the United States. It's not happening. It's not happening. So, Larry, where are we on Russia-Ukraine today?
Well, it's interesting. I feel like Donald Trump approaches everything sort of in the same manner, which is from a business perspective and a deal-making perspective. And he assumes that everybody shares his priorities, which is, let's all get along, make a deal. Even if we don't like each other, we make a deal, we're prosperous, and we can live a good life. When it comes to foreign policy, I think President Trump and other presidents quickly learned that there are really bad people in the world who have very bad intentions, and they want to kill their geopolitical enemies. And I think that right now he's learning that in the Middle East, or he sees it in the Middle East. And I think he's seeing it right here. I think he's very frustrated that everybody can't get on board and make a deal that would be logical for everybody, because there's so many centuries of hatred here between these two entities. And so I think where we stand right now is that there might be some more pressure now from the EU and the UK. They just renewed a whole batch of sanctions, and they're going to get a lot of media and press pressure on Trump, I think, to say, why isn't the U.S. joining these sanctions? And I think that's actually kind of a false argument if you think about it, because first of all, I think we only export, 0.4% of our GDP to Russia. It's not like our sanctions make a big difference against Russia. And secondly, the EU is still buying petroleum products via India, Turkey, and China that originate in Russia. So if the EU were really serious about sanctions against Russia, they would stop enriching Vladimir Putin completely. But they continue to find these end arounds on petroleum products. So I think there's still going to be a whole lot of noise, but I don't see it moving much.
Dan.
Yeah, I think if Trump is serious, he's going to walk away. And I think Ukraine will fall in the next 12 months. And the question will be, is Putin done? Is that it? Is his end game Ukraine, and that's it, and everyone can go cut business deals and move on? Or does he, as he has publicly said for years, want other neighboring countries? Find out.
All right. Elon Musk yesterday said in an interview that he wasn't planning to continue to make political contributions. Then later in the interview, he said, well, maybe I will if something changes. But he said he didn't see any reason to do it now. Lots of discussion, including, again, in another very well done New York Times story about Musk's place in the Trump White House and with Trump. It is a mistake often made when people are characterizing how Donald Trump feels about someone, whether they are up or down, to be black and white about it. And this is not unique to Donald Trump, but it is very characteristic. People will say, well, this person's on the outs with Trump. Well, it's usually more complicated with that. It can vary minute to minute. It can depend on the topic. It can depend on how skillful that person is in working their way back into Trump's life. There's no doubt that Musk, having announced he was stepping aside, and there's some doubt about how much time he'll actually spend in Washington. There's no doubt that he is diminished in Trump's eyes. Trump, for instance, on the trip he did to the Middle East, Musk was not treated like the prime minister at all. He was treated, as I understand it from people on the trip, at a lower level than, for instance, the cabinet secretaries, which is what you would have expected, but it's not in keeping with the way Musk was treated earlier on. And so we'll see how this evolves, because he could come back and Trump could find a rising interest in Musk. But Larry, what's your sense of Musk's future politically? Because he seems to have some concern, and understandably so, about how his political profile is hurting his businesses.
I think that's accurate, and I also think that he's very frustrated because he put himself on the line. He put his name on the line. He put his reputation on the line. And I mean, you talk about the politics of personal destruction. What we saw happen to Elon Musk over the course of the last couple of months was devastating. I don't know anyone who would volunteer to do that, but he did, because I do believe that he believed in the cause of Doge and reducing waste, fraud, and abuse. And he found quite a bit, and he made many recommendations, and he sees hardly any of it part of this reconciliation package. I just interviewed Chairman Jordan of the Judiciary Committee. I asked him specifically about this, and he said, yeah, I wish there was more in there too, but we'll hope for a recension order from the White House, and that's how we'll enact a lot of the Doge stuff. But I think the Republicans on Capitol Hill should have had Musk's back, considering what he had to go through to bring all of this to light. And I think that he's very jaded right now, as many bright, young, optimistic Americans who come to Washington, D.C. end up. It just happened quicker for him.
Dan, if Musk hired you and paid you your usual rate times 10 and said, Dan, I want to step a little bit out of politics, but I want to have maximum sway in the political worlds of Washington, what steps could he take to maintain or increase his sway?
Well, I think one step is, or one question would be, do you want to have maximum impact and hedged, regardless of who is in control of the White House or Congress, which is how most companies view government relations? Or do you want to be a MAGA star, which is what he tried to do? He tried to be a MAGA star. He was on his front foot on his platform X. He talked trash. He made up facts and figures that to set a narrative to please, Donald Trump, that his own team it ended up admitting in writing very quietly on websites were not true at all. So he brought a lot of this on himself. And I think that, Trump, he has the throw weight with his wallet to be relevant. I don't think Trump will ever completely go to war with him because he owns the platform and he has a ton of money. So I think Trump will continue to be nice to him, curry favor with him. I have no doubt they'll get together before the midterms and Elon will put money into it on behalf of the president. May not be whatever it was, 300 million he put into his race. But if he wants to really have power, he would go back to doing what he did before, which is you would build relations on both sides of the aisle, you would spread your money around, and you'd be a lot smarter about how you engage with members of Congress.
Was Twitter? Go ahead, Larry. Go ahead.
When you say he brought it on himself, I mean, they said he was trying to access the payment systems to enrich himself and steal money from the federal government. They said he was trying to spy on people's Social Security benefits for his own personal gain. I mean, what exactly did he bring on himself?
I mean, that's the fringes talking, right? That was not the mainstream.
That was Elizabeth Warren. That was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Well, exactly. Like you hit my point. But look, Larry,
they're the guiding lights of the party right now.
Well,
that's not the fringe.
I mean, look, Larry, he went online, right, on a front foot, savaging different parts of government that turned out to not be true. He loved if somebody responded to him on X, getting in their face and trashed. Tell me another CEO in America that does that.
Well, he wasn't acting as a CEO. He was acting as a temporary.
Larry, time out. He was the CEO of 4 companies at once and doing that role.
Right.
That'd
fine.
Be like,
okay.
He was a special government employee.
Dan, that would be being as overextended as being on 2 different shows on two-way.
Exactly. It's very similar.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I think that's the problem because the fact that you identify him as a CEO of a company when he was doing that role is part of the problem. Because what did people do? They attacked his businesses. Tim Walz would celebrate a Tesla stock going down.
Larry, the conflict of interest. Even Donald Trump, Mr. Conflict of Interest, said sitting with the Pentagon for a Chinese battle plan is effing crazy that we would allow him to do that. His conflict of interest are up the wazoo.
So you destroy them?
Enough of Musk.
But you call it out.
Got to move on. Please raise your hand if you're here on the two-way platform. You want to be involved in the conversation. Doctor, we'll get to you first, so please don't leave us. Jerry Connolly, congressman from Northern Virginia, passed away. So just noting that was announced just a moment ago. All right. Joe Biden, or as they call him on Saturday Night Live. What's the name of that actress who plays Kamala Harris on Saturday Night Live?
Joe Biden.
Yeah, Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
Some Joe Biden news. First of all, I continue to say if the Bidens really want to do a public service and also clear the air, they should make the doctor available for a full briefing and answer questions from medical reporters about the history of the course of the president's treatment and lack of treatment that led up to his being diagnosed with this advanced form of cancer. Because what they did yesterday was they put out 2 things. They said he wasn't diagnosed with this cancer until Friday, and he hadn't had a PSA test in like more than a decade. And again, I know that some experts say if you're at the president's age, as he was over a decade ago, you don't need it. But the reasons they say you shouldn't get it, it's not recommended, is because Some men get a test. It's a false positive, and then they freak out and they ask for treatment that they shouldn't have. This is not an issue with the president of the United States. Now, some people say, there's some percentage of cases, 7%, 3%, the numbers I've seen vary, where this can happen all of a sudden. It can be at this advanced stage before it's diagnosed. But again, that's with people, I'm quite certain, who aren't president and aren't getting a lot of testing. So this morning on Morning Joe, filled with my friends who are very favorably disposed towards Joe Biden, they've done more on this story than the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other newspapers who continue to be credulous. Even though the Bidens have a history of lying about medical and other matters, the rest of the press says, oh, well, that puts it to rest. They say he didn't have a test, so now it's understandable. Again, I'm not trying to hold the Bidens to a different standard, but it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense that a man in his position as president would not have been tested in some ways for this. And here's what they said about it on Morning Joe today, 103.
But this whole thing, like, I didn't take a PSA test since 2014. Why? You're running for president of the United States and you're not taking a PSA test for 6 years before you're going into the office? And then for 4 years while you're in the office? We'll talk about that in a little bit, but there's no good answer to that. That's either a lie or it's extraordinarily reckless. There's no good answer to that. That's 2014, and I will say I don't believe it. 2014, I know a lot of guys. They don't go, you know what? I'm going to get my mineral level. I want to see what my potassium level is. But I don't want to know what my PSA is. It just doesn't happen in the real world. It just doesn't happen.
Especially when you're president of the United States.
Yeah. But I'm saying even beyond that, it's not how guys think. That's like, and that's not what their doctors tell them. It's like PSA test once every 6 months.
Are like, sorry,
once every 6 months. You got to get it. I don't know a doctor that doesn't say that.
Yeah.
Dr. Larry, Dr. Dan, is Joe right? Are they either lying or it was negligent and reckless and malpractice?
I think it would be irresponsible and incredulous for any thinking person now to just take what the Biden family says on their honor. My word is a Biden. I think Joe Scarborough is correct to assume that they are lying. By the way, a revelation connected to this in the Tapper book that isn't getting a lot of attention. Dr. Y. Kwan Alfred Young, a physician who was treating Beau Biden in February of 2014, a year after he had been diagnosed with his brain cancer, issued a statement saying that Beau Biden was in good health. Even Beau's widow was frustrated that the family was keeping that secret. That's a pattern of behavior right there.
Yeah. Dan.
Yeah, it's very hard to trust what the Bidens have to say at this point. I thought, Mark, in your podcast yesterday, you documented kind of the chronology very well of all the events in which they've turned out to not be telling the truth, very intentionally. So look, to me, sunshine is the best disinfectant. If this is really honest and true, put the doctors out, have the doctors do a press conference, answer, all the questions. But of course they won't do that because who knows what other questions might come up about his general health. And so it is painful as a Democrat that here we go again. It is just another case of the Bidens don't want to say. They just put out very, very little. They expect everybody to cheerlead it. They hope it goes away. I wish the Democratic Party would come out and say publicly, enough. That is unacceptable. We want more answers. Like support a commission.
Yeah. There's more we could say about this. I'll just say a few things, and then we're going to move to one more topic and then take your questions. First of all, if you haven't watched Megyn Kelly's interview with Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, I strongly recommend it to you. Megyn has a master class in interviewing. Watch it. If you haven't watched my interview with Joe on Next Up,
also a master class.
Watch it.
Thank you. But I'd recommend you watch that. And Joe's my friend and said this famous thing about Best Buy Never. And I just asked you to listen to Joe's explanation with an open mind and an open heart to see how he describes why he said that and why he still feels that it was the right thing to say. You saw Joe just there. Again, there's literally not a reporter or analyst in America who responded to the Biden disclosure yesterday as assertively and with as much clarity as Joe. So I think you should give him some credit for being honest and not take what he says as anything but face value. So I recommend those to you. And then again, Tapper and Thompson were on Morning Joe this morning. I was going to play some clips, but I want to move on. But I recommend that interview too. So there's your reserve watching assignment. 3 interviews. Megyn Kelly next up, and that segment from Morning Joe.
I would throw in your interview with Ed Martin too, Mark, if I could, because he had quite a bit. His revelations about the AutoPen investigation was quite something.
Yeah, there was news committed last night on two-way tonight. So yes, I remember that. And how about Jess McDowell's a very interesting man too. Washington new. Thank you, appreciate it.
Sorry for
anyway. No, that's okay.
Sorry for interrupting to plug another two-way show.
Exactly. Yesterday, published on the New York Times website, it's in the paper today, I believe, a great story about all these Democratic donors who are being hit up by Democratic strategists for millions of dollars to try to create a system that will yield Democratic left podcasters and other content creators to try to catch up with Joe Rogan, etc. And there's one person quoted in the story saying, well, this has to happen organically too, but let's throw tens of millions of dollars after it. So Larry,
yes,
are these consultants who are trying to, I'll use a loaded word here, fleece these millionaires out of their money? Do they have a leg to stand on? In other words, is there a way to spend millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars to create the next Joe Rogan of the left, or is that a fool's errand?
It will be as successful as Air America was.
That's exactly what I said yesterday. Air America Redux.
That reminds me exactly of that.
Tell people who don't know what Air America is, Larry.
With the rise of conservative talk radio in the 90s, Rush Limbaugh leading the way, but of course so many other shows, including Sean Hannity and Glenn Beck and Mark Levin, etc. The left realized, oh my gosh, there's one part of media that we don't have a stronghold on, so we need to create our own competitive, liberal, left-wing, Democrat-centered talk radio. And they got a lot of money together, quite a lot of money, to put together a network called Air America. Their big star was a former comedian and not yet Senator Al Franken. And it ended up failing. The one bright shining spot out of that, other than Al Franken using it as a platform for his Senate run, was a then unknown young lady named Rachel Maddow, who actually got her start on Air America. And that was quite a success. It was a success for her. I don't think it was a success for Air America. They ended up losing tons.
But doesn't that suggest that are mocking this as a fool's errand might not be right? In other words, they created the farm system, and that yielded Rachel Maddow.
Go
ahead,
Dan. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, look, the problem is you're talking about political consultants writing business plans. Right. Air America could not grow an audience, right? And the donors, after a while, who are smart people who made their money, most of them in business, some of them inherited it. The Democracy Alliance is the group that funded that. It's not that easy. If all it required was a little bit of cash to create the next Joe Rogan, given how much money Joe Rogan is making, the number of investors and private equity firms and everyone that would be out there doing this like that, the MSNBC, CNN, the number of entities trying to figure out, how do we grow our audience in this environment right now, right? Yeah. They can't all be two-way growing like a rocket ship. They're struggling, right? So I think the party is right. We have a problem. But it is not that, unless the donors are going to say, we are willing to take losses upwards of, tens of millions of dollars annually for the next 20 years. And we're going to fund this like we fund think tanks, not trying to make any money. I mean, I'd love to meet the donors who are willing to do that. You're talking about not throwing away, but losing to the tune of probably a few $1 billion over the next decade.
Yeah.
And, all right, even still, real fast, they had a liberal Democrat, Joe Rogan. His name was Joe Rogan. I mean, the
Yeah.
problem
Good
is
point.
that their policies went so far over that they lost Joe Rogan, and you can't create this in a petri dish. It's not you couldn't make a Ben Shapiro. You can't make a Charlie Kirk. And if that's what their plan is, it's going to fail.
Yeah. All right. Uh, go to your questions. Just remind everybody coming up here on Two-Way today, Meghan McCain at noon, Leanne Caldwell is her guest. Tonight at the same as last night, 5 p.m. Eastern time for Two-Way tonight, not 6 p.m. Eastern time on the Two-Way platform. It'll stream on YouTube at 6 p.m. Again, I know it's a little confusing, but if you got the hang of it last night, if you want to be part of the platform, see the program live, join me at 5 p.m. and then the show will stream at 6 on YouTube. Our new shows, which we announced yesterday, super excited. Tomorrow night, Dan and his colleagues from the group chat will be my guests on Two-Way tonight, and then their program will debut next week, Thursdays at 4. And then Ethan Strauss' program debuts, am I right, guys, this Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern time, Random Offense with Ethan. Incredible talent. But tonight, debuting at 7 o'clock Eastern time is Bridget Phetasy show, Real America. And we'll talk more about that at the end of the program. But now let's bring in our first citizen, homemaker, and small business owner from Austin, Texas. Bridget herself is here. Bridget, thank you for joining. Just tell everybody what your show is going to be like besides the best set in the Two-Way universe.
I was going to say, that is
man.
phenomenal.
Rocking the mid-century modern. Let's go.
We're all super excited to have you part of Two-Way, and everyone who's familiar with your work knows what a great opportunity this is for the Two-Way community to form around you and to interact. But just tell folks what your show is going to be like, what your vision for it is, and what they can expect.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on Two-Way. Coming on as a guest a couple of times really gave me it's the new media. You know, I think that Elon has said we're all media now, and he's not really wrong about that. I do kind of think the death of the influencer is coming as everybody can now take part in this entire ecosystem. And I love the Two-Way conversations you're having here. As someone who kind of got into media a little bit later in life, not someone who went into it necessarily intentionally, for the past 10 years, I've realized that it's amazing. I've heard from people all over the country and the world, and it's also a little bit of the same people going on the same podcasts in the podcasting space. And for my show, I want to just hear from normal people. I feel like the people that I'm not hearing from are people that normies like me. And I wanted it to really be in the spirit of when I was freelancing for all those years, trying to be a writer. I was waiting tables, always on as my main job. And I got to talk to people from all walks of life. And they always talked about their stories and told me what was going on in their life. And I'm one of those people that will talk to you on the plane. I'm sorry, I can take a hint. But I will definitely strike up a conversation with anyone, anywhere. And I want to know what's going on with you. And I just want to know what's going on with you, America. And outside of America, too, I'm not just limiting it to America, although I am very curious about what the people on the ground are feeling. And it's usually the stuff you're talking about or hearing about. Politics is important. It affects everything, obviously, but it's usually what's going on with your health. I lost a job. You know, when you're a bartender, you're hearing, something's happening with my kid. My 20-year-old is failing to launch. I got laid off, which is actually the topic for our first one tonight. So I'll pick these kind of broad topics and hone in on specific stories. Like tonight, we're dealing with unemployment. Have you been unemployed? I want to hear from you. Any of you here, come tonight. We have a woman who is doged, and she has a funny take on it. You know, she's not like, wah, I'm talking to her because she kind of understands it, but also she's now unemployed. And another writer, freelance writer, who is basically replaced by AI, which I think that the coming AI bloodbath is really not something we're talking enough about. And yeah, so any questions, that's really the kind of spirit of it, hence the mid-century diner look.
I love it.
Yeah. All right. So Bridget's going to stay with us. She'll help us field your questions in a moment. And I'll just say, Bridget's a really talented comedian and writer and podcaster. She's very smart. But don't feel self-conscious as I shower you with this praise. Just Bridget is one of the most talented people I've ever met. Just in any field, she's just super talented, and you'll see that on offer every Wednesday night, 7 Eastern time on Two Way. So, Bridget, we just couldn't be happier to have you here. And with that, let's bring in the good doctor. Doctor, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks what kind of doctor you are after you unmute, where you are, and tell us what's on your mind.
Sure, I'm a retired doctor. I was a neurosurgeon for almost 40 years, and I retired about 12 years ago. That puts me pretty old. I'm in my 80th year. And I mentioned, I think yesterday or maybe the day before, I guess it had to be yesterday, that I hadn't had a PSA for 10 years. And that's because when I turned 70, our federal government has a preventative task force of some variety that isn't policy making, but advises Medicare and our federal medical people. And they recommend that men over 70 not get a PSA. There's a simple reason for that. That is, there are some diseases where the cure is worse than the disease. And for a 70-year-old man, that's the case. There are many times, and it has nothing to do with cost. It has everything to do with, and I'm a surgeon, so I know what happens when you have surgery. Lots of bad things can happen. And in the case of prostate surgery, that there are complications that you don't want to have. So our knowledge of prostate cancer has changed a bit in the last 10 years. We have a little better prognostic ability these days than 10 years ago even. So I decided to get a PSA this year. But I think our reporting in making it seem like the Bidens have tried not to have this information put out there needs a little, we need to be a little different about it, because Joe Biden had every right to not have a PSA. And he did not need to have a PSA. And frankly, according to our guidelines, he should not have had a PSA.
Well, doctor, let me push back on it, and then I want Bridget to jump in. You can say it every right not to, but his doctor should have, in his annual report, said we're choosing not to give him a PSA test. Guy's sitting president, was running up until not that long ago to be president for 4 more years, and there are plenty of doctors we've talked to who've said he should have had it. So opinions can differ. But if you're trying to be transparent about the president's health and you're making the decision, we're not going to give him this test, seems to me that they should have said that they were making that choice. Now, it wasn't on the form, but we couldn't reach a judgment because there's a lot of stuff they didn't put on the form because it was not a particularly fulsome disclosure of what tests he was given or not. So I'll let you respond to that, and then I'd like Bridget to talk to you.
Okay, I would, the response I would give you is that there is a law, and this is a law that carries felony charges against medical people who report information that the patient does not want reported.
Right, sure, but the president's got an obligation to disclose. So I'm not saying the doctor should have done it without his permission, but it should have been done in consultation with the president to say, we're making a decision, even though you're president of the United States, to not give you this test.
And if the president of the United States said, I don't want it, I don't want to know, the electorate had a right to know that.
Correct.
They did.
Bridget.
Oldest president ever.
Yeah, I as the resident normie here, I was kind of shocked that somebody who is the leader of the free world doesn't need to get this test and can just opt out of it. I feel like we do have a right. He's making decisions on behalf of hundreds of millions of people. We have a right to know what kind of health he's in. And if he is opting out of this test, which I think is insane, again, this isn't like Uncle Joe or whatever. This is the president. We should know if he has cancer or not, and he should want to know that as someone who is in charge of so many lives. So I feel like it's a little bit shocking, and it's a little bit I don't know. It felt like, do you really think we're just this it feels insulting too to say, oh, he just went with the he's 70. It feels like that they really just think we're very stupid.
Doctor, do you understand our point of view on this, or you don't agree, or how would you react to what Bridget said?
Yes, I do understand your point of view, but I don't think you understand mine. And that is that a 70-year-old man with prostate cancer is not someone who is imminently going to die. It is a disease that is very indolent. It does not progress very rapidly in almost every 70-year-old man. Now, in a 50-year-old man, that's a different story. But I don't think that the public really needed to know that he had a disease that was not likely to cause him death or disability within the next 4 years.
If it had been discovered earlier, would he have had no course of treatment as president?
Oh, there is all kinds of treatment. Like I said earlier, there are some diseases where the treatment's worse than the disease. And at 70, if he would have undergone radical surgical, treatment, for instance, that would have been, I think, unwise. Simple medication type things might have been all right and unlikely to be very harmful.
But 10 years ago, had he been tested 10 years ago, and it had shown that he had this cancer, if I understand correctly, you're saying the decision might have been, probably would have been, in your view, no treatment. But the American people had a right to know that their president had been diagnosed with cancer and that it could move very quickly and he could die in office. And the American people have a right to know that. So his choosing not, whether he chose not to have the test or his doctor chose for him, he was denying the American people information. I understand what you're saying is, for a normal patient, don't do the test. Don't do the test because you're not going to do any course of treatment possible at all. I don't agree with that, but I understand you're saying that the treatment would be worse. But how could you not let the American people know whether the presidential candidate had cancer? How could you not?
And had he not had that disastrous, let's say he actually won, he would be president right now.
Yeah. That's why we should know. And by the way, Doctor, I appreciate all the information, and I think that it's very valuable. But in the context of this political show, I think it's important to appreciate the political context of this decision, because this comes after 4 years of insanely irresponsible, wild speculation about Donald Trump's abilities to be president, where you had doctors on television diagnosing him from everything from mental incapacity and senility to health problems and obesity. So they can't have it both ways. You can't benefit from casting aspersions on Donald Trump during his first term and then keep things like this from the American people. And Kamala Harris, by the way, during the debate, because the president's age was such a factor, specifically said in her debate with Mike Pence that he would be completely transparent with his health records, assuaging the American people that it would be okay to elect the oldest president ever.
Doctor, thank you. Very grateful to you, and appreciate your bringing your expertise to us. Alex, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind.
Hi, yeah. I am in Connecticut. I just wanted to note that, a lot of it has been made about the Biden story coming to light, and the media needs to be honest about it if we're going to move forward. But there was also a book written by David Zweig, which is covering how masks were ineffective and lockdowns hurt our kids. And there was a book written about how SEL is bad in schools and is destroying the mental health of our children. And we didn't spend 2 weeks on it. And I know no one's supposed to care about the suburban mom until we're supposed to come out and vote on abortion, but we care a lot about these issues. And the media is not going to get my respect back by talking truth about Joe Biden's mental decline. Ezra Klein is running around talking about how tech is bad in school, when for years I was told by media that tech needs to be in school because poor kids don't know how to have computers. And now we're learning that that's actually really hurting our kids. So I need the media to do more than just admit that an old man is old to get my respect back.
Alex, God bless you. That's amazing.
Bless you.
Well said.
Yeah. Bridget, Larry, Dan, anybody else want to say anything besides cheer Alex on for her clarity?
I think you're right. You're making a really good point that it's very easy to say, oh, we got the old man thing wrong. Let's forget about all the other things we lost the trust of the people on, which is enormous.
Right. And in fact, as a mom, or I'm not a mom, but in witnessing moms raising my children, I was told that my kids, we got to reduce screen time, beware of screen time. And then the pandemic happens and, oh, your kid will be fine. Just put him on the screen for school for 3 years. And none of it passes the smell test. And it all has the same consistent common denominator, Alex, which is we in our common sense and our just basic observation of life recognize that what these experts are telling us is wrong. And yet when we question it or raise an objection to it, not only are we told we're wrong, but we're actually demonized for expressing those opinions. And that has to stop. So the reckoning that the media and Jake Tapper is leading the way on that they're going through right now, it can't just begin and end with this issue. They should really take a wide scope on this stuff.
Alex, thank you. Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I would like 2 weeks worth of coverage on David Zweig's book and Abigail Schreier's book. That's all
okay.
I'll say.
All right. Alex, thank you. Grateful to you for
like
that.
A new show.
Appreciate it. New show. Alex and Larry can host it. All right. Dr. Zach, are you a medical doctor? Are you like a doctor of love or what?
Yes, I'm an internal medicine physician. I work as a hospital doctor in Florida.
In Florida. Well, welcome in, sir. Have you been on this platform before?
No, I've been a huge fan. I watch you twice a day, and but I've never. I've come in a few times, but never talked.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're grateful to have you here. How long have you been a doctor?
2020. Well, I started medical school in 2016. So.
Okay. Well, we're grateful to you for your dedication to helping others, and love to hear what's on your mind.
So without going through the whole thing, the prostate stuff, it's just ludicrous. And so we talk about, oh, Biden has, degenerative spine disease, or he's got this walk, or he had these falls. They would have imaged him. They would have MRI'd him. They would have incidentally found bone mets in his spine. And like all the other doctors keep saying, it's been there for a while. I have a question for the neurosurgeon. Has he ever incidentally found prostate cancer on a spine MRI for someone coming in with chronic back pain? Like, it's just egregious. Sorry. So my question is,
just to clarify, you're saying it defies logic and practice to think that they only discovered it on Friday?
Yeah, I incidentally find stuff on old images all the time on patients I see.
Yeah.
And the thought that Biden hasn't had an MRI of his lower back in the last 2 to 3 years with the way he's been walking, no way.
And you're saying that MRI would have picked up the cancer without a doubt?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, it's a good point if true, and I have no reason to doubt you, and it makes sense. But again, I want to ask you a question we haven't really addressed, which I've always wondered about both President Biden's doctors and President Trump's. How could President Biden's doctor, if it's true what you're suggesting and others have suggested, how could someone who's taken an oath, how could that person just not tell the truth, if assuming he's not on behalf of his patient?
I don't know. I'm not the president's doctor. It's kind of an interesting thing we've had in the last few years with the way the medicine works, because there's the population medicine, like the COVID guidelines, right? And the vaccine guidelines. And for everybody, it might be good, but for individual health groups, it might not be the best for certain individual patients. So you're the individual patient, like my example is I don't believe in doing 2 vaccines at one time. There's a slightly increased chance of complication. It's tiny, but I think you should space out into 2 separate visits. But what we do in the medical system, because we're afraid people aren't going to come back, is we give them 2 vaccines at the same time,
right,
even though it would be safer to space them out because we know some percentage of those people aren't going to come back. Right. And so it's kind of the difference between personal versus about the oath. Your question, I can't speak to another doctor's Hippocratic oath. It's kind of tough.
Understood. Dan.
Look, I think there is a long history in this country of medical conditions of presidents not coming to light. I mean, go back to FDR in a wheelchair, John Kennedy's back, Ronald Reagan's, dementia. Like, it does not shock me that doctors aren't fully candid. I mean, they're part of a staff. There's political people around them. Like, they're not just going to go out and say, I'm going to say this and damn the torpedoes. Like, you guys can be angry with me. They're team players. And
well, see, Dan, I have a question actually. So the interesting thing about this is, like, they didn't need to release this information. Like, they could have kept it quiet for Biden and it could have been private. Now all the people in the administration are going to get thrown under the bus and potentially called in front of hearings to ask about what they knew. The doctor's definitely probably going to get called in front of a hearing. So Biden threw that guy under the bus for what? For Biden's ego?
Well, actually, the question was to Dan. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, look, we can all debate the timing and why they may have done it. I don't know, but I keep saying transparency. Like, there should be transparency and accountability about what happened. It could be they're fully telling the truth, but given that how much they tend to hide stuff, I mean, Bridget said it, like, common sense. We're all like, really?
I heard that on the two-way tonight. Sorry to interrupt again.
Yeah.
The Biden staffer you had on, I think 2 nights ago, and he basically kind of confirmed what I always thought, which was every little thing was a lie. He said they covered up even little things, and it just confirmed what Republicans have been speculating this whole time.
Well, I do want to be fair, though. It is not only the Biden administration that tells lies, right? I mean, this is a bipartisan problem in this party. We do have to be honest. Our current president is not known to be the most teller of the truth. I'm not talking about health, Larry, just in general. Larry's the biggest fiscal hawk ever. Come on. Like, I mean, this is what they do. They're politicians.
I have a theory about this. I have a theory about what we're seeing, the idea of a good man, a doctor, a military man. Why would he defy his oath? Why would they cover up all this? Why would all of these people in the Biden White House do this? Well, let's not forget, again, contextualize this. Years and years and years of rhetoric saying that not only Donald Trump is a fascist, but if he wins the election, it's the last election we'll have in this country, that the Constitution will be put in a shredder, that he will never leave office, that he will be a dictator. I mean, you say that enough, and you say it emphatically with the weight of the bully pulpit of the White House behind you, people start to believe that. And saying a little white lie or covering up something about prostate cancer, if this is the only man that can beat the guy who's going to end our republic, well, yeah, you're going to lie about that. And I think that filters back to the dangerous political rhetoric that sadly both sides have engaged in over the last couple of years.
Doctor, thank you for joining. Grateful to you.
Thanks so much, guys. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bridget, tell folks again where they can find your show, please.
7 p.m. Eastern here on the two-way platform. You can go to Real America Phetasy YouTube and please subscribe to our channel. I believe we're live streaming on the two-way channel and on that channel as well. So you can just come wherever you are now and please join us. We really want to hear from you, and I'm really excited about this. I think it's a way to kind of get bigger into the scope of the get out of the political for a minute and talk about the personal, guys.
Yeah. All right.
Bridget, it'll be fun.
Super excited to have you part of two. I just can't tell you how grateful we are that you're joining, and how personally I'm just so excited about the whole thing, and really looking forward to your show. So thank you. Again, Megan's show is on at noon today. Leanne Caldwell, Chief Washington Correspondent of Puck, will be Megan's guest. Megan and I have been texting. She's got a lot to say today. So don't miss Megan at noon with Leanne Caldwell on two-way. And then tonight I'll be here again, 5 p.m. Eastern time. If you're joining on the two-way platform tonight, 5 p.m. Eastern time, stream on YouTube at 6. I'm asking now my colleagues if there's anything else I'm supposed to announce. Is there?
Just how amazing the two-way platform is.
I don't think so.
Right.
All right. Larry is not going to be here tomorrow, unfortunately. No. Do we know who's going to be here tomorrow in Sean's seat? I think I know, but I never heard it was confirmed. Is it confirmed? Yeah. Larry, you know it's confirmed?
Well, she confirmed it with me yesterday.
All right. Yes, Mercedes Schlapp. Mercedes Schlapp will be here sitting in for Larry. And
by the way,
Sean.
and she's my company in O'Connor and Company tomorrow morning. So she'll be doing 4 hours with me and then flipping right to you. So
she's doing 5 to 9 with you and then switching over?
Yes, sir.
Larry, don't tire her out.
I was gonna say
she'll be just fine. She'll be all ready to go. Do I seem tired?
No, good point. All right, so Mercedes will be here tomorrow, and then Friday in the Sean seat will be Ambassador Kennedy Center Honcho Rick Grinnell.
My man.
And so excited, looking forward to having Sean back, of course, but excited to have folks rotating through. And Dan, you doing anything later we should know besides watching the next game with me?
I will be on with Laura Ingraham tonight. So
Laura Ingraham. All right.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you all for watching. Very grateful to you. And I'll see you again tonight, 5 p.m. on the two-way platform, 6 p.m. on YouTube. And then right after that, Bridget premiere, international, global, world premiere. Have a great day, everybody. Don't forget Megan, me, Bridget, all coming up on two-way today. Have a good day.
Night.